This is
I
the
don't, I
Throughout
don't,
the Film podcast. I'm Brian. I'm joined by my three good friends. We got Justin, we got Dylan, we got Giancarlo. And we are talking today about Being John Malkovich, a interesting film, strangely enough centered on John Malkovich, who is somehow an actor and an actual character within this film. It's really strange conceptually. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Dylan, what do you got?
why the fuck is it John Malkovich, man?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's all. Every scene I couldn't stop asking myself, why is this about John Malkovich? Because I don't know who he is, first of all. And second of all, even if I did know who it was, I'd still be like, why this particular actor? Because I would think, films are very intentional pieces of art, like all art. It's a very intentional thing, right? So like, as you get to kind of like, if you were sitting down with the screenwriter, that'd be my first question. I'd like, why the fuck do you pick John Malkovich?
Like Charlie Kaufman, why John Malkovich? Why'd you choose him?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like they couldn't get other actors for this. Like, what's his name is in this from 2.5 Men? Billy Sheen? No. That's his name?
I've never seen 2.5 Men.
Never seen 2.5 Men? Really? Wow.
Yeah,
John Malkovich here. I liked him. But yeah, so why John Malkovich is the question.
And like, the question is also, is that even like a relevant question to ask? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think
Well,
I think Charlie Kaufman, the person who did the screenplay for this movie, he won an Oscar for, I think, best original screenplay. But he apparently, like, a quote from him, according to Wikipedia, is that the screenplay was always being John Malkovich, even before I had any expectation that John Malkovich would even read the script. So it's very intentional, and like they were set on John Malkovich before, just to repeat, before he knew about this movie. So they really made this for him, and I think the reason because they did is because, at least from what I know, is that he's got like, just based on the movie, there's just something about him that's like, it's almost like he seems kind of like a normal celebrity, but like, I think he's not, like, at least in the movie, the way that people play him up, they think that he's this jewel thief guy, and like people don't really know who he is, but like there's someone that's like, oh, like I've heard of him. And so I think it's just that, like, oh, I've heard of him quality that like makes it like almost like funny or ironic that he's like the fixture of this movie. It's like, why not focus on someone like a huge name? But it's more, and he was very prolific and was in a lot of Broadway and Hollywood movies. But it's like he didn't quite like become a household name in the way someone like we were talking about earlier, Brad Pitt has. So I think it's just that kind of quality, and his personality comes through as being like very like, just kind of like, it seems detached and like, just like, oh, like I'm rich, like I don't really care, and so it's kind of ripe for like exploitation, or it's this star image that's like ripe for being like messed with by these like characters and to kind of pick apart. But also like you kind of sort of get a hint at like how weird he is, or maybe I don't know if that's the film making him that weird, or if it's like he's actually that much of a character.
I think he's actually kind of crazy, but there's kind of like, there's like a weird. Oh no, go ahead.
Oh no, well, so I want to touch like the fact that it's John Malkovich, I think is in part due to kind of how dynamic he is as an actor. Because number one, it's incredibly hard to act as yourself, but like with something a little bit wrong about it. So like I think that we're like acting as someone, like acting as a completely built character is much easier and different than acting as yourself, like kind of being half possessed by someone else, or just yourself, like not like doing normal things. I think so.
Yeah, because you have to act as someone else being you, which is just
exactly. So I think it's like, one thing is like it's he did that really well and really convincingly. But then on top of that like there are certain actors who are like synonymous with their image, the way that like Dwayne Johnson is, or like I'd argue maybe like Scarlett Johansson, or there's actors who like they have the certain way that they look, and they usually look like that in all of their films. But then there's other actors who are super dynamic, and you don't know their names. You know their by their characters. For instance, Margot Robbie, who played like that ice skater in that movie, and looks completely different from playing the Leonardo DiCaprio's wife in Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, so like it's there, and I think that John Malkovich was like that in many ways, and that's what made it so good, because people didn't know who he was on the street. So people were like, I swear to God, I've seen this person. It's John Malkovich. Like, I know he's been in movies. I know him. I've heard his name before. And I do too. Like, I couldn't tell you what. I looked it up yesterday. So I know one movie that he's been in, which is recent 22 Miles with Mark Wahlberg. But it's like I couldn't tell you any of his famous movies aside from being John Malkovich, but I know I've seen him. I know like
yeah, I think
I
you
know
know
of
like
him.
I think
he's an actor's actor, you know, for all intents and purposes. He's just a man
and then also like he values the art in a way that many other actors don't.
Yeah,
He doesn't do the drama. He like, because like, you know, he'll do whatever he wants. He'll do whatever he thinks he can do to express his art the best. For instance, he does
he's not
drama.
an actor you see in the tabloids all the time or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't see him on the news
He's
about
not
like his
gonna be,
new
like,
girlfriend or something, you know.
about
It's
his
more
new
about
wife.
he's there.
And he does have the scandals, like, clearly, but he just doesn't choose to make them a public part of that. His image.
So he's sort of an actor that's tangible.
Wait, Dylan. Oh, what were we saying? So, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, he's sort of he's sort of an actor that like everyone recognizes, but he's not image-wise, he's not completely tangible to them, like, so they don't truly kind of have an idea of who he is.
Because he becomes the characters he plays so well.
Yeah, so I think that's why.
I think that's why it's an excellent choice. Dylan's been waiting to talk. I'm sorry I cut you off.
That's right. Right, but they you guys remember they were like playing into that with like, or playing into that part of his star image when they had the whole thing where like what's his face Schwartz, or I can't remember his first name.
Craig Schwartz.
Craig Schwartz, yeah. He's like playing. He hijacks Malkovich's like star image and uses it as a way to kind of like project his own star image into the public.
Yeah.
His own art.
It's a weird, weird contrast between him and like the actual John Malkovich's star image in our world, where he's like not at all, not very much in the public eye. You know what I mean? And then he gets hyped.
I think that's also a commentary on art, on the appreciation of art, and how like if you have clout and you put something out there that's just like somewhat artistically like valuable or like attractive in a way, you know, people are going to embrace it and be like so excited about it. Say you're a revolutionary if you're someone like John Malkovich, but then it really it's kind of like it's saying that the art is more about the artist and who the artist is. Then that was the message I got. I'm not, you know, saying as to whether I believe in this or not, but that's the message that was kind of I gathered from this.
Giancarlo,
I want to go back to some incredibly like basic things about John Malkovich's star image, because I think I was kind of reaching, and like I don't want to say like maybe we're all kind of like reaching for things to like say about like his star image, but I think the first thing that comes to mind is his name, like John Malkovich. Like that's such like it's so weird because John.
Yeah, it's like a classic basic name plus a like really complex, Malkovich, you know.
Like, and then his face also, like I think his name and his face like are his star image. Like it's just very like I don't even know. There's just something about his face that's just like so like serious but also like funny. It's like
and that's
it's just very
and that
like
does kind of contradict what I was saying earlier about like him being a very dynamic actor and you recognizing him as the people that he plays, because he has a very distinctive look, like image, but it's like his person. It's so like he looks the same because he's usually bald. He looks the same, and I think we should talk about this later. But like they kind of took that away from him once he was becoming not him and being the puppeteer. But I think that like it's more of his personality and his emotions in the movies that he plays in that makes him more independent in each film and makes it harder to kind of recognize him as like a star and more just to recognize him as these characters that he plays because he does it so convincingly.
Yeah, I mean, I just need to see more films by him. Like, I've
Yeah,
seen, like,
I
some
agree, but
very like,
Dude, I say we switch the podcast just being like, John Malkovich centered. Just every movie John Malkovich.
yes.
yeah, it's just very like. There's, I think for this movie, it just works. Like his name and his face just works as something to like be fixated over, like to just like,
hmm
and everyone is just obsessed with this guy, and like I think that's what's so funny. It's just that like,
Yeah, he's
like,
very much a winner, you know?
yeah,
Like he's very much
yeah.
like a, he gets what he wants, like with women, with, like his career and stuff. Like, he just like when someone meets him, they just really become attracted to him and like they want to be him or they want to be with him. Hey Brian, you look confused, but
I'm talking about,
did you not
the
sense
movie, or
that?
are you talking about real life? Like people just want
I'm
to be
talking about the
John.
movie.
Oh, okay.
Well, but like the characters in the movie, but I think that he like he because of him being a celebrity and him not being a celebrity for a stupid reason, being a celebrity for like him because he's a good actor or like a good actor and a good looking actor, I think that made it different and made him like more of a he's more of like a fictional almost character of this like kind of more perfect character, and then you learn later that he has these flaws, such as that we learn from his subconscious, like he's like a weird dude, or like he's like he had some trauma from his childhood, which then was associated with like the monkey or whatever. But it's very I think that his personality is one of the big reasons for him being chosen, like his personality, and then or like how they decided to show his personality in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he has like who is that actor from Jurassic Park?
Chris
Chris
Pratt.
Pratt?
No, no,
Oh,
no.
from the original?
Yeah, no, the older one. He's like I can't remember. He's shoot.
Oh, you mean the weird one?
No, the weird dude. And he has glasses. He's in the new Thor movie. He's in the latest.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
Go Bloom, right? Or is it Goldberg?
the Goldblum.
Goldblum,
Just,
right?
like, yeah, he kind of has like an image that's similar, although Goldblum is like more seemingly
More wacky and outrageous. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just more
Malkovich, I think,
eccentric.
does.
It's like he's
Yeah.
like a confident star, but is also just like wacky
Like
and then
very
like kind of
reclusive a little bit.
yeah, but kind of
Yeah.
create the same craze for him. Like everyone loves Jeff Goldblum. Like and it's just kind of funny. Like it's
Everyone
more
loves John
like
Malkovich. Is that
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
get. I didn't get that sense from his stuff.
I-
I mean,
Well,
I
the
love
whole
him.
movie, like people are like lusting after John Malkovich. Like that's
Right, but-
what the movie's about.
But I don't think they learn like what it's like to be him. They don't before that. They're just like, oh yeah, you were in that one movie, I think. Like, it's just like weird.
Well,
Like,
I think
Yeah,
that
I think it ties in less to his image and more of just to the concept of being someone else.
the thing is, the
being-
portal though, the portal is what makes people want to be him, and I don't think it's like
Yeah.
the experience is so amazing that they want to be him. I think it's the portal is some sort of like addictive nature of it.
Yeah.
Because like sitting in someone else's body and watching them shower or talk or read a book out loud, like isn't that amazing? It's not, and so that's why I think like the film itself is maybe like it's like it creates its own world where this portal is something that like the experience of being in this portal is different from anything else that we can imagine. So it's like you do it and it changes your life, kind of in the way that like an addiction like takes control of your life. So and I don't think that like that by nature, if this portal were to exist in our reality, it wouldn't have that effect on people. It would be like fun and a different experience. But I think it's like you get part of his brain and your identity becomes like mixed with his identity, and then you start to want to be him just because like the portal itself has like fundamentally changed your identity in a way.
I
Because,
think it.
that would be my
Yeah, that's a fair
prediction.
interpretation. I think it just more lies in just that sense of just first off like escapism, escaping your identity, and then just that kind of power and control that and kind of
Yeah.
voyeurism that comes from just entering someone else's
Yeah,
consciousness
that's
and kind of
see, I was
being
thinking
there.
about like
Yeah.
As a
voyeurism as
star,
well.
I think is very relevant though. It's because like these people, like this guy is like, I'm fat and my life sucks, and I want to be.
But
John
he
Malkovich.
seems so weirdly like desperate. He seems like on the verge of like, like dying or something. Like he seems like he's like completely broken down in
So
a
we're
way
talking
that
about
like
the man, the first guy
that one guy who's like
yeah,
who's like on the verge of tears, saying like,
yeah.
I just want to be so, like it's like the characters in this movie are not like they're not convincingly real characters in our world, but for some reason, because of like the wacky nature of the world that's been like built for us in the movie, we believe it. So like we believe that like that secretary who's not a secretary, can't understand a word anyone says, and like only John and his wife, Lottie is that his wife? Anyway, only they like hear her properly, and then everyone's like super surprised, and then just glosses out like the way that there's these social laws. I was saying this before. There's these social laws in this movie that we subscribe to, and it's almost like physics. Like there's this like social physics where if you say something or you behave a certain way, people are gonna react a certain way, and that's like kind of turned on its head in this movie, where like like we see multiple examples of this in the beginning, where like he's talking to Maxine, and he makes normal conversation, and she takes it
She's just
as
like, you want to get in my pants.
Yeah, and she's
Right away.
and the response is just
Although
so
to be
outrageous.
fair, like based upon the conversation, that did seem like it was his intention. Like
well,
from the get-go, the way he was looking at
with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did seem like that, but
She just like went right
the
for it.
response
Like,
was completely unreasonable, I think. He was not like he didn't talk about sex and that. And then there's also that old guy.
It was like impulse. Like if you thought someone was doing that, you wouldn't say that to someone.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's
right away.
It's not so crazy
and she doesn't. She's not lacking in social skills or anything. Like Maxine, I think Maxine is like kind of an evil character. Like she manipulates.
Wait, just real quick, just comment on like the whole world and its kind of weirdness. I would say it's consistently weird. Like it's consistently off. So we kind of have that understanding.
That's what I was getting at. Like wait, real quick, Giancarlo. Sorry, I think that like the characters who are in the floor itself, and then Lottie, like they are all completely like turned upside down. The way that they behave and react to certain things, like that old man talking about sex like really explicitly in the workplace. The Lottie having like a whole like load of animals in their house, and then them not fighting about it, and like the scene where they're making dinner, the chimp is screaming, the bird is screaming, like the people upstairs. It seems like a hellish like way to live. Like all that sound, the complete mess. It seems awful, and they don't seem to mind. They don't seem to be so stressed out and sick of each other. They don't seem to be on the verge of divorce. I think they are on the verge of divorce because of like Schwartzy, like being kind of unfaithful or like emotionally cheating in a way. But like they're not on the verge of divorce because of the way that they live, and because the way that people are living around them.
I think they kind of are. I think it is because of the way they live, kind of, right? Because like you have to think about the contrast between like the chaos and the noise of their house versus like the silence of the portal, and like when you know what I mean, like there's no when he gets into like Malkovich's perspective, it's like contrastedly quiet. It's like literally.
Well, I think it's also being in the office is very quiet. It's weirdly quiet. Like you don't really notice that outside. Like it was something I kind of, upon reflection, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like the office was like very eerily quiet, and if the office had been a normal size, like I think there would have been more echoes, more everything. I think that like the way that the environment that they were in was reflected in like the amount of stimulation that we got until we got into the tunnel, and it became like yeah.
You didn't mean the tunnel got more quiet in the office?
I think the tunnel got louder, and then once they're in, like, because it became super loud. Because we would turn up the volume when we were in the office to hear what they're saying, and there wouldn't be like random office background noises like faxers or whatever or like telephones, and then he'd get into the portal and go down and be like completely overwhelmingly loud, and then he would be in John Malkovich's head again, and it would be it would be muffled, and like you would hear certain things like that John Malkovich does really loudly, and it would be like super uncomfortable, like the chewing. Oh, that made me cringe. I didn't like. Well, it was like not cringe and like an embarrassment. It was like I hated that sound, But it was like
yes. I mean, I feel like just John Malkovich's like his perspective was strangely normal. Like it was just so like mundane, like relative not only to the world that we knew, but kind of like that celebrity idea of like their crazy lives or whatever. It was just fairly just normal. Like he was just going through.
Well, he didn't do anything.
The world we were presented was so weird. Like that's what the first act did, was just like it kind of presented this world of like everyone, like social interactions don't make sense. And I feel like what made Craig sympathetic as a character was like he seemed to be the only one that reacted to situations normally. Like when someone like I don't know, when someone was like doing the thing where she was like, "Oh, are you trying to get in my pants?" He was just like, "No, I was just talking about this like film."
Yeah, because we identify with his perspective.
Or just like someone was like making some really weird sexual joke, and he was just like, "Oh no, I like am not very into that." And, like this is.
And then all of a sudden, he takes it the wrong way. The guy was like
people
took him being into it and like
normal as if he's being super weird.
Like even weirder than like
so weird. Like it just makes everything so weird, and then just like you just accept, oh, they have a chimp. There's a 7.5 floor. Like, but then I think the arc of it is that it, even though it already is narratively kind of weird, like the setup of the world, but then then the arc of it changes from just being like kind of the world, the diegetic world, to just be like weird, to then it just narratively just goes kind of off the rails. And then so then we get caught up in just like all the bizarre like vessel thing and the tunnels and that kind
so
of
just quick question, do you think like how different do you think the movie would have felt if like we didn't have all this weird, this whole like really off world, and then we get the portal, which sort of kind of fits in it. It weirdly fits.
It felt like some sort of like almost not thriller, but just like some bizarre like fantasy mystery movie.
Like a magical.
Just be like, oh,
it would be like a sci-fi-ish movie, I think. Like it'd be because we are given a world that's different from ours, and because we understand movies, and this is not just like kind of the arrogant, oh, like we're better at watching movies because we're like film majors or whatever.
No,
it's
we are better.
Like the way that people watch movies, they'll accept what's given to them. So we spent the first act accepting.
Can I just mention something really quickly?
Yeah.
So I put this movie on, and then my dad showed up. He started watching it with me, and he's a guy that isn't really into film at all.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, he actively hated this movie with a burning passion.
Really? Because I watched it with my dad, my brother, and sister, and they really liked it. My sister was like, "Oh my god, this is so weird." She's in 9th grade, and then my brother's in 11th grade. I had to do the math there, and they both really liked it. My dad said he liked it, but he slept through most of it, so I don't know. But yeah, Dylan, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I feel like it kind of like you're drawing the contrast, Brian, between like us as like film, I don't know, experts, I suppose. I don't want maybe. Well, I know like relatively speak to like to the layman, right? Who like don't like this movie kind of like it. I think it kind of like the weirdness of the world is kind of like normalized in a way that forces both groups to kind of it combines.
Well, it allows. I wouldn't say forces. It like allows us both to accept it, right?
No, I think it says. I think it forces it. I think the social laws you guys are talking about are what forces kind of even Carl to like accept the weirdness of his world. Like he has to accept that he works in an office on the 7.5 floor of a building where the ceilings are half as high or half as low as they're supposed to be, and he kind of has to do that in order to kind of for him to survive in this world because he needs his job, right? And you as a viewer are forced to do the same thing. You know, like you're asking the question, you're questioning and rebelling against the weirdness of his world, but you're also like kind of like just like along for the ride in the end. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
to watch that movie, you have to engage with that world, though.
Right. You have to accept it.
Yeah.
Survive it. Or for you, watch, but for him, survive. Yeah.
Yeah. I think also like you know how there's the first scene with the puppet show, and he does the same. He does like the what was it called? The
Hands of Misery or
performance of
something?
terror, misery, and yeah, he
Something
does
like
that.
that. Yeah.
And then and it's like super eerie. And number one, like at first, the way that it's shot. And I think it's like the way that they use like a wide angle, like low focal length lens, made it look like it was a puppet show being performed on a big
Yeah.
stage,
Yeah.
a like
100%.
large scale stage, in the way that he performed it before. But it wasn't. It was like a practice puppet show, and I can't like hate to say it, but like I can't really interpret that without rewatching it a couple times because it was so out of left field, and like I hadn't seen the movie yet, so I didn't know what was going on. But like I definitely noticed that I mean obviously he did that puppet show performance, and then he did the exact same performance as Malkovich later in the movie. And so like I just thought that kind of maybe we can draw some parallels between like his puppets and like more like deeper than just the obvious like Malkovich is a puppet of his, but like his puppets in the beginning and like him as a character towards the end, and then like eventually culminating in him being the puppet as Malkovich and him like being doing the puppet show at the actual like Oscars or
Well,
whatever.
I think the important question to ask is who is the puppet? Because of course John Malkovich is, the puppet that's used by Craig. But Craig's being used entirely by Maxine, just manipulated.
And then Maxine is being used by Lottie, maybe?
No,
And then wasn't there like a big circle of manipulation where Malkovich can manipulate Maxine, Maxine can manipulate Craig. Wait, what was it?
I don't know if there was a
Like
circle.
they acknowledged it in the
No,
movie.
but
There
Maxine herself was like, if Craig can control Malkovich and I can control Craig, then she controls both of them.
Maxine tried to control everyone.
Yeah.
Like she tried to control Lottie, Craig, and Malkovich.
Wait.
But then,
Hold on.
There's the other element of Dr. Lester, of like the captain dude. He controls Dr. Lester, and then he's priming Malkovich to control him. I feel like Malkovich just gets controlled. Like I don't think he controls.
I feel so bad for Malkovich in this. He's just.
Let's go back. How does Malkovich get control? How does Malkovich control Craig?
No. Craig controls Malkovich, and Malkovich and Craig is controlled by Maxine. So that means Maxine controls them both. So it's not a circle. I'm not saying it's a circle. It's literally Maxine controls Craig controls Malkovich. There's no circle.
Yeah, Maxine controls everyone.
So
the only thing Malkovich controls is his like celebrity world. Like when he's himself, he gets to like tell.
But he's not. That's not really him in this movie. Like,
no, I know. I'm saying like that's his like kind of fake off control. Like his control that like we don't really like see like, but he's being puppeted by like everyone else. But
what we see in Malkovich, the perspective we see of Malkovich is his private life, not his celebrity life, because like they conveniently only jump into his body when he's in it, like doing something private, and so it becomes like kind of voyeuristic, as Brian was saying, in a way, like where we're spying on him at times when no one should be spying on him, instead of watching him like in public, and even when he's like eating the dinner, for instance, like the dinner date with Maxine. That's a very private moment. No one should be watching him, let alone watching him through his eyes. And then like in the shower, the very first time we see him, the very first time Lotto sees him in the shower, like that's just such a inappropriate, like it's like the times that we see him are like the least appropriate times that we should be watching him,
Yeah, and I feel like that leads into like I feel like sex is like a large part of this movie. Like
Yeah, I
it's
think we
so,
can't. I just don't think we can talk about this without talking about like either sex or gender or just something related to that. He
yeah,
was
because
like
there's
kind of an
just so many
integral part of
elements
it.
about that. Like there's the voyeurism element. There's like this part that like there's a part of the movie where it just becomes some like sexual thing. Like that's what being
Yeah,
John Malkovich is.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
Lottie gets like obsessed with like having his genitalia and just like being in his skin, and she like
yeah. It's like she wants his voice, his
trans-
powerful voice, just
yeah,
like
she wants to be transgender. She like thinks she's
she. Oh
transgender
yeah,
because of that. That is like that was like I was like whoa, like when
yeah,
There
when
was
she
an analogy at one point between, wasn't there an analogy between like the tuttle, not tuttle, the portal going to Malkovich's brain, like the vagina. Like there was like a weird, and they just kind of like,
yeah, yeah.
and it's
She's like he has a vagina. Yeah, I like that.
yeah. It was like, oh, they called it, they said the portal was like, it led into his feminine side, right?
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
Mhm.
and they just never, it was, the analogy's only brought up once and they never talk about it again. But I
There's a
missed that.
whole load of things like that where it's like brought up once and then never ever mentioned again. Like, well, like the fact that that story was fake. That's brought up. No, it's brought up like 2 or 3 times, but it's just never explained. Like the fact that the story about the little person and the
But the question is the story fake?
founder of the building. I
Because
have no
Dr.
idea.
Lester is Dr. Lester or whatever. He
He's
was
the
the captain, right? So maybe the story is.
He
Is
was
it
not
real?
an Irish man, was he though?
I mean, if he was the captain.
I think it's like someone just thinks it's fake. I don't think it's like confirmed.
Yeah,
Yet.
yeah. Because Maxine's just like that's BS, you know.
Yeah.
But it might actually be true, and in a sense, all right, I'm really stretching here, but this space that was originally intentioned for, I guess, little people. I don't know the correct phrasing here, but it is now being occupied by just different people. They're sort of occupying their existence. That was a stretch. Sorry, I don't know what I was going with.
No.
Back a little bit. Explain that.
Wait, explain it because I'm focused for a second.
Dude, I don't know.
Explain.
I don't know how to explain it besides what I said. It was really just of the moment thought with that much detail. But I don't know, the space that was originally intentioned for small people is now being occupied by tall people. It kind of just feeds into that same John Malkovich idea of just occupying an existence that isn't yours. I don't know. That's what I really have that much to say. I don't know.
Not like accepting it. It's weird, but they like nobody said it. Nobody really talks
Yeah.
about what like this space is not meant for you. Like you're not meant to be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they never address morality in this, but I think maybe that could be because like the people who have the ability to address the morality are like the bad one, like the immoral characters in the show, like Maxine and Shorty. And then the people who would usually like be empathetic and be like, oh, this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this, which is Lottie. They become infatuated because of like the allure that this portal has. So there's really no one to check their moral compass, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
then on top of that, Dr. Lester, he doesn't even like he doesn't think about the morality of it because like I feel like since he's lived so long, he starts to disassociate with humans in a way. And a lot of other movies and TV have kind of brushed on this with immortal characters just losing their moral compass entirely because they don't have to deal with death or like they don't have to deal with their own mortality, which is what is happening here. So yeah, I think that like he's going. I think that
I think to him, this is less of like a horrible action. For him, this is survival. It is. This is how he
but
lives
it's also
on.
like he doesn't think of him as a person. He doesn't think of him as a conscious being because he's kind of like a god in his mind, right?
I don't know about God.
The captain is kind of godlike. I mean, maybe yeah. He just found a way to cheat death. But I think it's weird what maybe what they're trying to say. I don't know. I guess going back to to the sex thing is that like
Yes.
yeah, let's go back. I think like I don't know. They're trying to say just how like how kind of base level that design. It's just weird that like as soon as people really start getting into the idea of portals, like that's the first thing that like they start obsessing about, or at least Lottie, and then like with the what's it, Craig, and then Maxine, they all just start using this as just some like bizarre tool to like satisfy their fantasies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's and like
Well,
it's just
Maxine also gets obsessed with it.
Oh,
yeah,
you
no,
were
she, like they get, and then there's just the whole idea of like seeing like two people through like what is it?
One
Seeing
person's
two
eyes.
people, yeah, one person's eyes, and how that
Yeah.
like, it's just that.
Yeah,
that's
the way that
where they
Maxine
go
in
with
a
it,
way
and I
gets
think
addicted
it
to
says a
that
lot.
kind of.
It's like
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
I
like
think
it's not
voyeurism.
only Lottie who's
Mhm.
yeah, it's not only Lottie who's like the addict in this sense. It's like
Yeah,
Maxine
no.
is as well, but in the on the
Yeah,
other
and
end of
Craig.
things, she becomes obsessed with like having sex with Malkovich while Lottie is in Malkovich. To the point where she won't touch him, she won't even kiss him until until like Lottie's in him. So that's why like she won't go sorry, I lost my train of thought, but like comes to his room like a couple minutes early, thinking that she'll need to kind of talk to him a little bit before she gets to like get into business with, get down to business, and like before they kind of like hook up that time, and then like that leads to like as soon as the clock strikes, she starts to have sex with him, and then on top of that, like she can't like hide that Lottie is in there, so she calls Malkovich Lottie in this, and which is like is such a like she should be able to just not call him anything, like but kind of the effect the portal has on the people around it, basically, like makes her like puts her in this kind of lustful trance that makes her like have to acknowledge that Lottie's there, like verbally, while they're there, not just emotionally, and not
Yeah, I think it's just like, but I think like the kind of that lust is like already there, and then like the portal just becomes like a tool to like further it to these like crazy heights, and it kind of reminds me a lot of like Black Mirror. I don't know if anyone.
The episode with the Street Fighter thing.
Yeah, the street. Yeah, with that video game. I like that's what it really like gives off.
Yeah, I think what begins as sort of a voyeuristic, actually more of something, I think a relationship based upon like power dynamics, not like each other. Like Maxine kind of gets this arousal to like this voyeuristic power based relationship, and I think sort of the same thing applies to Lottie. But then that kind of blossoms into like a genuine, or I don't know if blossom already was, but it becomes a genuine like emotional relationship. And
I think at the very end, I think that's a good point, Brian. That like it is like with her, she gets like aroused by power. Like it's like the idea that like to what was she saying? Like it's just amazing that like to just have three people lusting after her, and then have two people lusting after her, like that like is in the same body, which is kind of crazy. Or like one person like. And,
well,
like,
I think it's like we can't understand it because like it doesn't exist in our world, but like the world that's been created for us, that's something that's like the ultimate pleasure, right?
Yeah. Well, I think a large part of it for Maxine is the power of it. It's like with her, it's just like, and that's what she was kind of like. That's what made like Craig so like crazy and like overzealous, is that like he's just kind of like, oh shoot, is darn it, I lost my train of thought. But like the part that makes him crazy is that she was just taunting him by being like, oh, like I have like these two people like going after me, and like that's for her, that's I think was a large part of it. Is like
I think she grows past that eventually. Like she kind of starts off like, actually she has three people lusting over her. I think she gets like infatuated by that. But I think
Yeah,
eventually she like when she does end up in that long term relationship with Craig slash John Malkovich, kind of learns that this isn't what she wants.
yeah,
All right, so I think that like we've had a great discussion about and like talk established that this movie is set in like a different world with not only like this fantastical element of portals that lead into someone else's brain, but also it gives us like a world with different rules and boundaries. And there's we could talk about it forever. I mean, there's like I remember even in the beginning there was an instance that like it seemed like the fourth wall was briefly broken, but like we can discuss kind of the abnormality of how people behave in this movie for a long time. But I think to wrap it up so that we don't talk for like an hour or an hour on top of this. We should we just I think we should go who should we root for in this movie? Like what who should um who is the protagonist of the movie and who is really like in the wrong here, you know?
I
Um
think
just like a 2 sentence or 20 seconds thing.
I can start. Just I'm in John Malkovich's camp this entire movie. I hate Craig. I hate this guy. He's a simp. He's a big simp. Just straight up for Maxine. He's just and each of these characters is just giving so much satisfaction by using and manipulating another person. I just can't. I can't truly like really like root for any of them. So yeah, John Malkovich is my boy, and I was so bad for this entire movie.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like what's worse. Sorry, go, Dylan.
no, I'm still formulating a thought.
I was gonna say what's worse is that he like was terribly abused. Like I was really shocked that he would like hit her and like knock his like wife down and then like put her in a
Lottie,
cage with a
Lottie.
chimp. Yeah, Lottie.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the
Um
biggest point that was like whoa, like because like cheating is like he was trying to cheat on her, which was really weird, and I was like, is that like is was their
it
relationship
was
just like
wrong,
that?
but
I
it
was kind
wasn't
of
like
confused. But then
didn't send
the
it beyond
lock her up
redemption,
was
you
like a
know.
whole other level of like weirdness and like terribleness. That was like, wow, I guess this dude is like just kind of like really delusional now. This like portal has like made him crazy, or maybe he was already like that. I don't know.
Kind of,
Mhm.
I thought the person was easiest to root for was kind of like Lottie, man. I thought she
That's
really got
fair. That's fair.
cause she didn't really like, she didn't like go out and cheat with this person. The person kind of came onto them, and this guy's already cheating on her, and then
True.
she gets screwed over again at the end of the movie by it. So I feel like at the end of the day, she was kind of like,
Yeah, I feel like she's trying to find out who she was. She's kind of
yeah,
discovering.
she was,
Yeah.
I thought she was
Mhm.
the most
And yeah, to be
sympathetic,
fair, Maxine does kind of
Yeah.
grow and become better, I'd say.
right?
Um
So
yeah, I definitely agree with all that. I do think that Lottie is like a very sympathetic character in the way that Dylan was saying, and I think that like her all of the mistakes that she makes are not entirely her fault.
Mhm.
And she is like a little weird and quirky in the way that she like has all these animals in her house and kind of like creates a unpleasant environment to live in because of that. But I don't think that that makes her bad. I think because like her intentions with having all these animals, like she means well. She's trying to say, and she's very innocent in that way. And then she gets sucked into this portal, and like it completely rewires her brain. And like that make leads her to do some things that like we become upset with her for. And but I don't blame her for that. And then uh to like just reiterate that like that we don't like Maxine. Maxine like literally dresses as a devil in the beginning with like her red lipstick and her like complete red and like kind of the way that she sits and like she's like I couldn't help but think of a devil. And I was thinking of I don't know if you guys have seen Love Actually, but there's a character who looks like exactly like Maxine, wears devil horns, is literally like is the Maxine of kind of more of a, you know, conventional rom-com movie. But I think that kind of the movie sets her up as this like demonic figure in a way that, and so the movie knows or the mise en scène and the costumes and the cinematography like highlights that she is bad.
I won't get into it. I would agree with I'm just gonna say this. I won't like get into the whole thing about it, but I would agree with that if Craig had not called her evil. If Craig hadn't, because there was a scene where he's really salty, he's like really upset at her, and he's like, "Oh, you're just so evil, Max." And I'm like, "What? All right, you know what I mean? Like, I can't agree with him, you know." So I really don't. Like him.
You don't agree that she is the devil because Craig is so much worse.
I think it's more nuanced than that because Craig is saying it from such an emotional. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to get into a whole.
I know we don't want to get into it, but like the thing is, Craig is influenced by her in the way that people are influenced by the devil. So like that. So like Craig is like Craig is controlled by her, and it leads him to do a terrible, like out of character thing, which is like put his wife in a cage and tie her up and not feed her or let her go to the bathroom.
He didn't make her do that part. To be fair. I think she does a nickname to a certain point, but like.
Well, I think that
she changes
make him do that, but her presence and her not her like the way that she treats Schwartz makes him like it drives him crazy, and like it's like kind of like I don't know, almost like a, you know, pheromonal effect that she has on him that's not like directly tied to her reactions. It's just her presence like drives him mad, which it does sound a lot like something that like the devil would do. I don't know. It's like an interpretation. So like you're free to, you know, disagree
like
with
femme fatale archetype, but
for
the sake of saying something that like other people haven't said, I would say the character that I was rooting for the whole this whole time, or not the whole time, for like a specific part of the time, was Elijah the chimpanzee. Simply because he was responsible for, in my opinion, the funniest scene of the movie, where her arms are
that scene was so. That scene actually made me like really emotional.
It was funny, and it was heartbreaking, but like it was just like the dialogue, like the chimp dialogue, and like
and the way that it also went into the chimp's head in the way that we go into Malkovich's head, like with the like the tunnel vision. It was very, very interesting. There's so much to talk about, like about everything.
I think we talked a lot.
It's a shame that we can't, but
I think we really should be wrapping this up.
Yeah, it's like we could talk for so long, and there's so many things because this was a great movie, but I think this was a great discussion. We shouldn't even open up for final words because I know that I would just go on forever.
Thank everyone for watching this first episode of Throughout the Film podcast. I'm Brian, that's Justin, that's Dylan, that's Giancarlo. We'll be back with another episode very, very soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Next week.
Okay.
All right.
All right.